everybody. This is a roundtable with High School of Recording Arts. We're excited to bring you another collaborative learning time in the Minnesota Learner-Centered Network. And we have quite an amazing team to share their experiences. And we will hand it over to Joey.
Thank you, Julene. Welcome, everybody. You're probably tuning in on this via video stream, which is A-OK, but we want to say ahead of time that if you have any questions from this, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We'd love to field them, and we might set up some events afterwards to check in with you and your staff if you have any particular inquiries. So I am going to share my screen now to get us started. Let me put this into presenter mode. Sorry, folks. So we are the High School for Recording Arts, and our presentation today is about engaging homeless and highly mobile youth with wraparound services and creative pedagogy. And we have an amazing panel for you guys today of practitioners from HSRA from all different positions. We have some folks here from our advisory team, from our education team, and from our social work team and support services. And so we will be I'll give a brief introduction of everybody, tell you a little bit about our school, our mission, and who we serve. And then we're going to jump into our presentation where it'll be kind of a roundtable format where we'll go to each different department and I will be interviewing folks about their positions at the school and the way their department is structured. And they'll give you some information about how they serve the unique students at our school at a very high level. And so our staff panel today, how about we start with just brief introductions? I'll go from each person. If you can just come in and say who you are, how long you've worked at the school, and what your position is. And we'll obviously return to you guys later. But first and foremost, we have Amanda Galloway.
Hey, everybody. My name is Amanda Galloway. I am a lead advisor for our beta team at HSRA, and I have been an advisor for about 6 out of the 7 years I've been there. So it's been great. I used to run orientation before we went into pandemic mode, but yeah, that's what I do.
Thanks, Amanda. And Leah McGinley. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leah McGinley. I too am an advisor. I am the lead advisor for the Aztec Advisory. And like Amanda, I have been an advisor for 6 out of the 7 years that I've worked for HSRA and wouldn't have it any other way. So.
And just a note is McGinley, we got hit with the cursed spell check here, so I apologize for that, Leah. We got a G there instead of a K, but we will fix that in post. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Tiki Blackmore.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tiki Blackmore. I'm a lead advisor for Delta. That's our seniors here at High School for Recording Arts. I have been there, I guess, 1 year less than Leah and Amanda. And yeah, that's what I do.
Thank you, Tiki. We have Tabitha Wheeler.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm Tabitha, and I'm the lead school social worker, and some people also call me the youth advocate. And I'm an old timer. I'm going on 19 years, believe it or not.
Congrats to you.
I used to actually be the homeless liaison. Thanks. I used to be the homeless liaison back in the day before we had a grant to have Melinda. So.
And to throw Tabitha another prop, she is this year's Minnesota Social Worker of the Year. So congrats on that, Tabitha. And we have Melinda Brown.
Hello, I'm Melinda Brown. I'm the housing liaison at High School for Recording Arts, also the nursing assistant. So I wear many, many hats. I am going on year 2 with HSRA, and this has been like an amazing journey. Even with the challenges that homelessness brings, this has been a very rewarding position for me. So I'm truly blessed.
Thank you, Melinda. And we have Renee Swanson.
Hey, I'm a lead teacher, and that stands for Assistant Director of Educational Programming. I really just want to say that. I've been with HSRA for 12 years and came straight to HSRA out of my master's in teaching program at Hamline, and kind of, yeah, everything I've become as an educator, I owe to just the support I've had at HSRA along these last 12 years.
Definitely, when you have a title that long, we do a little abbreviation. So thank you for making that one clear. And hi, everybody. My name is Joey Chenyan. I'm our Director of Educational Programming and a Social Studies teacher at the school, and I've been at the school about 10 years as well. And I'm very privileged to work with this awesome team. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our school, and then we're going to jump right into the Q&A of our sort of roundtable here. Our school has been around for about 20 years, a little bit more. We started quite small, but now we serve 350 youth. We are a re-engagement program. We work with young people from all walks of life, but 14 through 21. And our mission is structured around helping young people find a home, find success in a high school program. Many times they have been pushed or kicked out of other school and become disengaged and just cynical about the school experience. We try to be a restorative place to help them rebuild a positive school experience and to develop success, get a high school diploma, and develop a successful plan for what they're going to do afterwards. We have 4 key values that we always like to start presentations with because they really help. They're simple in form, but they're profound in execution. They really help to justify and explain what we do as a program. So at our school, we really care about family, respect, community, and education. Our students know it. Our students affectionately call ourselves Studio 4, often signaling these 4 values, and our really impressive studio and recording arts program. But you can see here on the screen, those values really do matter to us, and they represent a lot of the different experiences students have with family. I think more than anything else you'll see in this presentation today, that is a distinction where students come to our school and we want to create that environment where they feel supported on a very authentic level, as if it were a second or even sometimes a primary family space for them. Respect, we believe in restorative justice. We believe in structuring our program in a way where there's mutual respect and shared power with young people. That helps a lot with the way that our program operates, because a lot of times young people who come to our school have had major problems with respect in other institutions before they get to us. And we're very restorative in that angle to try to rebuild those relationships with youth. With community, we try to share power with young people as a very foundational value for us. And we want them to very much own the community of our school. It is a place where young people can be in charge of things, can dictate their own schedule, have a lot of freedom. And we open the walls of our school beyond just the classroom. We have an enormous amount of community connections, community learning spaces. Obviously in the Twin Cities, we have a lot of opportunities to connect people to very profound academic experiences and engaging hands-on learning. And so community, bringing in elders, bringing in community members, entrepreneurs, all sorts of different connection points is a high value for us. And finally, education. We really have a student-teacher partnership where we try to have students take the forefront and own their education, make their plan, and find a way to learn in our space that works for them. We're very adaptive and flexible with our young people. We practice hip-hop pedagogy, which means a lot of different things, but foundationally, it really means about being in touch with youth culture and us staying relevant and constantly adjusting our practice to try to be interesting, provocative, and a very positive experience for the young people that we serve. We also have 4 pillars, and this is stuff we're going to really go into today. As a program, we're asset-based. We provide an enormous amount of wraparound services. We have innovative practices, and we have a social justice focus. And in these, I'm not going to go too deeply into this because we don't have enough time. We have other presentations where we go into these things more explicitly, but in each of these things, they help to inform the way that we work with our students and the way that we structure our work, particularly around asset base. We know our students come to us with incredible genius and skills, and when they show up at our door, we want to make sure we show them love, encouragement, and see them for their positive strengths to help them develop a positive relationship with schools and adults. Whereas before it might have been something that was lacking for them. Wraparound services we'll go into, but when I talk in a second about the students we serve, you'll see that we need to definitely be more than a school and offer students a lot of support to help them to start to address their hierarchy of needs when they show up, not just learning in the classroom. You'll hear a little bit from our ed team about the innovative practices we have in the classroom itself, but also from our advisory structure to get students in the door, keep them engaged, build solid relationships, and help them to develop skill sets in the arts, and get an enormous amount of therapy as well. And then we have a social justice focus. So we want students to be change makers in their community. We want young people to be able to talk about the experiences they've had, whether it comes into critiquing the criminal justice system, exploring their own civic engagement as a young person that has power in our community, working with political leaders, even working through the court system to change laws. Our young people are focused on social justice, and we care about that as a foundational value. And so that's basically the beginning of our presentation here. I want to tell you guys a little bit. I'm going to stop the screen share because we're going to open up to the staff in a second. But I want to tell you a little bit about the students we serve. Like we serve 350 students. We've done that pretty consistently at that level for a number of years now. And the young people who come to our door have different characteristics that you might see in your building. Oftentimes, or each year, we serve between 30 to 45% of our youth that are homeless and highly mobile. It might be that they're couch hopping. It might be that they're living in a chaotic situation. They might be staying in a homeless shelter, or they might come in with needs where they need to be attached to a housing situation with support from our staff immediately. But that's a significant number of young people that is a very foundational need for young people when they come in the door. Obviously, the hierarchy of needs, we know through education philosophy, needs to be met for a young person to be ready to learn. And when a person doesn't have a house and a place to stay overnight, they're coming in with a different set of needs than just to go into a math classroom and get started on algebra. Many of our students have had experience or have been involved with the criminal justice system. Many are working. Many of our students have children or are taking care of children in their own families. A majority of our students enter our school overaged and undercredited. Even some of our younger students, we've seen them show up at freshman year, midway through the year, having limited success at a prior school and needing to make up credits immediately. So many of our students are overaged and undercredited, the broad majority. And as we dive deeper into this analysis of our student population, we've seen trends that most students who show up at our building have attended 3 or more schools before they get to us in high school. That doesn't even count the schools that they attended beforehand. So a lot of the students have not found success in high school at this point, found a home. But we don't use the term dropout intentionally because many of these students have been pushed or kicked out from other schools due to a structure that wasn't accommodating to their needs, a lack of support, lack of cultural responsiveness, oftentimes institutional racism or explicit racism that they experience in those learning spaces. And they're coming in disengaged and looking to have a restorative experience with us and a therapeutic experience as well. And so working with this population, it sets us up with a need to be very innovative in our practices and not have a structure that I think you would call traditional, because we have so many things that we need to do with students before we just say, hey, here's your schedule and we're going to get you into a classroom. And we're going to explore that now with our panel. So how we're going to start here is we're going to start with our advisory team to talk a little bit about, and I'll interview you guys first, talk a little bit about your jobs, the structure of your program, what you do, what the advisory system is at HSRA. We're going to then move to our social work team and with Tabitha and Melinda, who is also our homeless liaison, to talk about some of those wraparound services that you provide and the different ways that you guys work with young people to support the advisors. And then we're going to conclude with Renee and myself to talk a little bit about what we're doing on the education team, where how we've changed some of the pedagogy and the practices we have in our classrooms to help students who are dealing with all these different issues when they come in be successful. And so I'd love to start with Leah, Amanda, and Tiki unmuting, and obviously anybody can chime in if you want. But can you guys describe your job at the school? What is an advisor at HSRA? And can you also talk about just the structure of the advisory at HSRA and how that works? I'll open it up to the 3 of you guys and you can keep passing off to each other.
Cool. Amanda, do you want to start with like orientation up prior to this and how that worked?
Yeah, sure. So one of my main roles at High School for Recording Arts is to onboard new students that are coming to us. So really just getting to know them, finding out how did you get here? What brings you here? What do you like to do? What don't you like? What has worked for you as far as like education? Like what learning style are you? And really just getting to know them and help break down those barriers, because a lot of times our kids are coming in and they're kind of like, F education, I don't want to do this, you know? So it's really a great opportunity to get them to trust you by having those conversations and just getting to know them. I think a lot of times in schools when students start, nobody really sits down to have that conversation with them, and nobody's really getting to know them on a personal level, so they feel like nobody really cares. So I think that's a really unique thing that we do at the school, starting with that piece, because then we can really tap them into the different things that we offer at our school. So if a student comes in and says, you know, I don't really have any interest, but I take a lot of pictures. Oh, so you're into photography. Great. Let's get you hooked up with the VIP program. That also gives us the opportunity to find out what barriers our students are facing as well. So sometimes they are homeless. How do you expect a kid to function in school if they're worrying about where they're going to sleep that night? So I look at the role of as an advisor as being their person, as being their support. A lot of times we're their friend, you know, we're their mentor. We can be a lot of different things, that connector piece really. So yeah, that's kind of what the orientation process is. And then they kind of get filtered into the different advisory systems. So then I've made this great relationship with them. Now I'm going to bring them over and I'm going to introduce them to the lead of Aztec, which would be Leah, or Delta with Miss Blackamore here. If they need resources, I'm going to connect them with Melinda or Tabitha or something like that. If they're really struggling with their credits and not really knowing where to go, hey, Joey, what's going on? Let's introduce you to them. So we're really just the connectors. So.
And can you describe a little more, or maybe someone else can jump in here, what is our advisory system structure? Because I don't think a lot of other schools have structured it with the amount of staff we have in the system in the way that we have, like describing the Aztec, the Beta, and the Delta, and the amount of staff in each one of those zones.
Sure. Yeah. Like a lot of times when we get students, a lot of them are undercredited, or we have students that are, we've had a lot of new ninth graders, like true freshmen. So our Aztec advisory, they work with students who are 0 to 13 credits. So we're not going by 9, 10th, 11th, 12th. It's really about kind of where you're at credit wise. And also we look at your age as well too. So Leah, she's the lead of the Aztec group. Beta is kind of that mid-range. So I'm one of the leads for Beta as well as Dan, but we deal with typically those 13 to 36 credit range kids. And then Delta, they're finishing up, and they move over with Miss Blackamore, and we're really focusing on what's coming next in life. How do I get enrolled in college? How do I apply for financial aid? What do I want to do with my life? I mean, we really start out from the beginning asking the students that as well, like, what are your top 5 things? What do you want to explore? Because we have the opportunity to allow our students to explore those things while they're in high school. I think that's a gift that a lot of schools don't focus on a lot. You know, I even look at myself, thinking about what I wanted to do at that age. It's like, I don't know. You know, I like doing a lot of different things. I don't know what I want to do. So if we can push them in the direction of exploring some of those careers when they enter our building and we work with them, I think they're a little bit more successful. But Leah and Tiki, you guys can kind of jump in and help out with that as well too.
Cool. So like Amanda was saying, you know, once she goes through that orientation process and does like the handoff, you know, this is your person that you'll be working with. And so then it becomes my job, right, is to tap into another layer. So Amanda's already got that first layer kind of coming down, maybe not. It might just kind of, you know, think in a sense of an onion, right? Sometimes that peel just comes right off, but sometimes you got to kind of pull and tug. So, Mama Shai used to always refer to these kids as onion kids, right? So what does onion do? They make you cry. and sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. You know, the flavor is always going to be right. So, but yeah, sometimes you got to pull off that layer, and sometimes it just falls off naturally. They give you who they are. They let you see their authentic self. So really, students, they come in all levels of emotional state, right? And they come in, you know, with their needs and stuff like that. But it's really just a building that bridge of trust with them and allowing them to, you know, just know that you're going to be there. And so they'll have you jump through their tests of trust as well, right? They'll throw a couple few things out there to see, do you really have my back? Are you going to do what you said you would do? Are you going to follow through with this? You know, and it's really important for us to recognize that as a test coming our way, to say, you know, hey, I told you I got you. I told you I'll support you. If I don't have the answer, I'm certainly going to connect you with the person who does. And so I just think we do a really good job of that. We have a real natural process to that. And it might be because of relatable, livable experiences, right? And so, you know, like Amanda said, you think back to how you were in high school and whether, you know, did you know what you were going to do? No. But you also I can also relate in a different way, you know, in relation to every 6 months we were moving. And every 6 months, you know, my mom, who had a drug habit. And so that caused a lot of conflict within our house and how we, you know, whether what bill was going to be paid or, you know, so there's certain things that are relatable experiences that I could, not with all students, but with some, you know, and you learn that through your natural, you know, give and take in conversation and relation and shared experiences and just that natural process of just learning one another. Because although they're there, it's a learning institution and they're there to learn. We're learning as well. And so, you know, they are our greatest teachers.
Yeah, just a follow-up question. At our school, we have way more advisors than really anything else. We have way more advisors than we have teachers, and it is a distinctive position at our school. Sometimes that's a shared position, but at our school, it's separate. Why do you think it's so important to have so many advisors with that smaller caseload to serve kids, particularly kids, young people who are going through homeless experience, going through those chaotic situations outside of school? Why is it so important to have so many different staff as advisors at HSRA to serve them?
I think it's just the role, the authenticity that is offered through, you know, I think about in my high school, I never even met my advisor that I can recall, or can recall a conversation where my advisor met with me on a, you know,
regular basis.
in a true, you know, genuine care type of way. I think us being able to have the amount of advisors that we do, it keeps that like you said, that caseload a little bit smaller to where you can give a little bit more to, you know, those people really needing, those students really needing your undivided attention and your, you know, and it also allows for teachers then to focus on the learning, the teaching component of that. So like if we're working in a unified front and, you know, preparing the student to learn and to really, you know, have these components ready, the teacher isn't, you know, worrying about, oh, this one was disrupting the class today, or this one was doing this today, and this one was, some oftentimes sit in the classrooms, so we get to see it firsthand. We get to kind of be proactive as it's happening, so it's not like a later on down the road type of thing. It's like, we're just present, we're there, you know, and I think the more present, the better, because it allows the students to see that, you know, we are like a family. We're here, we care about you. You think about people who have large families, you have aunts and uncles, cousins, nephews, and all that. And, you know, and it's sometimes looks chaotic and sometimes looks dysfunctional, but really there's a lot of organized care and love that is happening. So, and I think when we have that many advisors, it allows us to have that care and love that's needed to be.
More of that one-on-one, if I can just kind of add to answering that question, it allows you to not have to look at your notes to be able to answer a question about a student. Mm-hmm. Because your caseload is smaller and because you are in contact with them on a regular basis. If a teacher comes to you and say, I'm having this issue with this student, do you know what's going on? I don't need to go into excellence and look at my notes. I can say, because I built that relationship with them, because I have a smaller caseload, I know what's going on with them. I know what their goals are for the week. I know whatever problems that they're having, because instead of having 30 or 45 students, I have 15. or have 20, or I might have 5, because we have advisors that have, the caseload's even smaller. You have a caseload that deals just with IEP students. So we literally are making them smaller so so we can target the needs that they have.
And I'll add one other thing, like a really good thing that we have as well is our care teams. So like we have not only advisors working with our group of kids, but also the teachers and the social work team. And it's just really that full wraparound service for our kids. Like I know, for example, Leah and I, we tag team a few kids a lot and just have those conversations. Like a student that Leah worked with last year, you know, he's really struggling right now, and we'll get on the phone with him and be like, hey, what's going on, you know? So I think too, it doesn't create that barrier with teachers. Like if there's a conflict or something like that, you know, like we can deal with those situations so they're not avoiding class. You know, if they're having an issue with things like that, we can help kind of smooth things out and work with them.
So to ask another question about the Care 4 teams, and Tiki, I'll pass this one to you for a little bit. Can you talk about the type of structure and the amount of frequency that you meet as a Care 4 team, who's on the team, what you do when you meet? Because I think what you guys mentioned, like like knowing if your students are active, knowing if they're there, acknowledging and noticing when they're not, and then doing those daily nudges and reaching out to the students and their families every day really makes a difference. So can you talk a little bit about what the Care 4 teams does with student concern and what that whole system looks like?
Definitely. Before I answer that, I just kind of really want to explain a little bit more about what Delta is. Then I'll go directly into the Care 4 team. So for Delta, we talked about Aztec, which is, you normally see the freshmen, the sophomores, and then you go to Beta, which is the sophomores and the juniors, and then you go to Delta, which are seniors. And as Amanda mentioned, we're preparing them for life after high school. And that's really it. And we're looking at it holistically. So you're looking at the education piece. We're getting you ready for post-high. You have to be able to apply for a college, get accepted, do the financial aid, really prepare yourself for college. So we prepare you for that. If you're looking for careers instead, we still prepare you for that. That's non-negotiable. you know, because you might change your mind down the line. You may say, I'm not going to graduate, I'm not going to college right after high school, but 5 years from now, I might want to. But what we taught you during the time you were in high school, you'll know what steps you need to take to get back into college. So that part is important. The careers aspect of it, we're looking for that. We have something going on right now where we have people from the community coming in from different walks of life who have different careers. I have someone coming in who is a mortician. We had someone come in who is a software developer. We have someone coming in from an activist group. So we have different people coming in that look like our students, which is really, really important, because the students that we work with are students of color, and a lot of them are transient, and a lot of them have just experienced trauma after trauma and have not been able to see people be successful that look like them. So we bring people in from the community that look like them. Some of them have even had the same experiences, that are successful in their careers. So by the time they get to Delta, that's really what we're focusing on, is really getting them prepared for the next step, but also understanding that, as both Leah and Amanda mentioned, they're not going to be able to focus on these things if what I'm worried about is where I'm going to lay my head once I leave school. If I'm worried about the fact that I can't concentrate on this test because my stomach is growling and that's all I can focus on. Or there may be a lot of mental health things going on. And these are things that our kids are struggling with every single day. And each advisor, regardless if you're Aztec, if you're Beta, if you're Delta, you are working hand in hand with our wraparound support services to make sure that we can provide support to each category, each need that they need. So if my student is hungry, and Ms. Blackamore, look, I know you're worried about me doing this application for Hamlin, but I don't have groceries. Well, then my next step is to get Tabitha on the phone, get Melinda on the phone, get Megan on the phone. These are people from our social work team, and I work with them in the moment with their needs. And that's what we do. We learn when to be flexible and when to adapt to their needs, and then we bring them back around to what they're going to need for tomorrow. We deal with what's happening today, and we work with what they need for tomorrow. So that's really what we're doing. And the Next part of that is working hand in hand with the teachers as well to make sure that with whatever is happening with them academically, that we're that liaison. You know, we're supporting them with that. If the communication is breaking down, that's where we step in and we help with that. But we're encouraging them to be assertive and say and communicate. That's part of what we're doing. We're teaching a lot of these youth how to speak for themselves and how to learn how to do it through even when they're angry. You know, it's okay to be angry, but how do you communicate what you're feeling and what you're thinking? All that falls under the umbrella of what we're doing. So I hope I explained a little bit about that. And then I'm gonna go into your next question, which was what the Care 4 team does. So we normally meet 4 days a week, and Mondays through Thursdays. And we have people from the social work team representing. We have the housing representative for Delta is in there. We have Studio is represented in there. And then we have our teachers, and then we have our advisors. And then we sit there and we talk about students' concerns. We talk about celebration of students, because we remember that not only do they have their struggles, but they have their achievements, and we want to share it with staff. But it's important to share what it is the student's going through, because let's say you're having a communication breakdown with a student, or maybe they went ghost on you and they just disappeared. You have no idea what's going on. Well, we also have SSE team, that's a support team that comes in there, and they will track the students down for you, and they help you get them re-engaged in the school. So it's really great to have all these team members together the same day, every day meeting, and we will rotate and talk about the different students and where we're at and what their needs are. And then if I'm saying I'm having a struggle with connecting with the student, he's not answering my call. Well, I have a staff person who has a great relationship with that student, and they're like, oh, I'll tap in, you got me. And then they'll pull me on a three-way. I've had my first four-way conversation was last week or something like, and I was so proud of myself because I'm not a tech person. I finally figured out how to do it. And I had two teachers, myself, and the student on the phone. And we got him going, you know, we got him engaged, and he had that support. And we start off in the morning. We get together, we come up with a game plan to help our student be successful, and we do it as a group, we do it as a family. So that's really and then we talk about our announcements and what's going on for the week and what we should let our students know about. All that happens in the Care 4 team meeting. But I just really wanted to focus on talking about the individual students and making sure that everyone who's in the team is there to support and help them with whatever needs that comes up.
Well, thank you so much. And that's an excellent segue to kind of shift to Tabitha and Melinda, who are in our Care 4 teams and hold up some of those supportive roles within what you're talking about, Tiki. So I'd love to pass the baton to you both and have you guys describe what is your job at the school? What is your role in the Care 4 team? And can you describe how you're serving our youth in a unique way?
Melinda, do you want to start?
Sure. Like I said before, I'm the housing advocate at the school. And just piggyback on what our advisor leads had spoke on about the connection between the students and the staff. I believe that when a child or a student is when a child or a student is struggling in different areas in their lives, it's hard to be present for school. But when you have that nurturing, caring person in your corner that's going to help you get through this thing called life, it makes things a little bit easier with transitioning through high school. I mean, high school's a piece of work by itself, but then you add on all these barriers that goes along with it. I'm hungry, I'm homeless, I'm tired, I have a sibling that I'm watching after because we're hungry and tired and homeless. It just becomes a mess. So I love that the staff here can collectively come together when they notice that they have a student that's sleepy, hungry, or tired, or whatever the case may be, and they're struggling academically. Well, this is why. Now let's get them the support that they need. And then this is where Tabitha and myself come in, where the staff, the advisory staff, or the teachers have made the connection with us, and we can get them the resources they need. I work closely with a number of shelters, youth shelters. I try to avoid adult shelters unless there's like an absolute need, but the youth shelter programs are phenomenal for our students because they have a more secure presence there. The students feel safer than being with the adults that are much older than them. We service students 18 to 24, 16 to 24 years old. So if I have a 18-year-old, like a fresh 18-year-old, I dare not room them with an elderly 40, 50-year-old who just might be a little shady and they don't feel comfortable being in that space. So it's important to build relationships with the youth shelter. So, you know, hey, I'm here to advocate for my students. What can we do to make them transition into this youth shelter a little more comfortably without them having to worry? Now, okay, I don't have a place to stay, but now you're going to put me over here with Joe? I'm not okay with that. So just building relationships with everyone, a big community of people has serviced our students very well. And they just love us. They are, some of them call me mom. I got a relationship with them and they just, it's an open door, like, hey, I was helping with housing, and then they're like talking to me about their boyfriend problems. You know, they start to trust us and love on us and lean on us for support, whatever that looks like, whether it's housing, food, clothes, relationship, college applications, apartment searching. I mean, you name it, it's a revolving door of students that just come to us because they trust and they know us.
Melinda, why do you think it's so important to have a position like yours at the school, but instead of it at a community partner of the school?
Availability. A lot of students, it's hard enough to get them to come to school if they're struggling, but now you want me to bounce around and go to somewhere else to get the services when they're right here. I think it's convenient. And then you're not dealing with a stranger. You're dealing, like I said, you're dealing with working with someone that you know and trust, that got your back, and that you can see tomorrow. Like, I'm going to school on Monday, Melinda's going to help me, and on Wednesday I could just go to her office and follow up, like, hey, did you hear anything back from this shelter or that person? Or, oh yeah, they're here, they want to meet with you, come to my office right away. It's just convenient for the students to have that.
Can I add to that too? Just to both Melinda and Tabitha, being housed in the school, they're part of the family. So it is an intricate part of the school. It's just much part as the teachers are. It's just much a part as the advisors are, because you have students who will come and have a conversation with you even if they're not in crisis. And that's really what it's about. It is those relationships that you've developed with them, that you're seeing them. And then if something happens, because they know you, they know who you are, it is not as hard to get you to get them to trust you enough to get that help.
I recently, well, not I, but HSRA had a graduate who was not homeless, who didn't need us for resources at all. But I was one of her people because her best friend was highly mobile and needed housing. We crossed paths, and she texted me even after graduation, like, Miss Melinda, you were so critical in school for me, and thank you for being there. And when I want to make you proud, you know. And it's like one of those things, one of those moments. It was like, wow, I'm touching people that I haven't even really assisted much, you know. But just seeing that I was there for her best friend and the love that I poured out into both of them, you know, it was just like, wow, that's huge.
I also really,
family.
oh, big time. And I also really appreciate when you're talking about the relationships you have with shelters, and even just understanding the complexity of a 2-county system with so many idiosyncratic tendencies and constant change. Like, your expertise helps cut down barriers for our young people that might have prevented them from getting housing or appropriate housing if they had to go to a community service, you know, or if they had to try to figure it out on their own. So I appreciate that. Tabitha, why don't you jump in here too and talk a little bit about how the social work team operates and how it's a key component of our care teams?
Sure thing. Melinda did a great job too of just explaining how we connect with the advisors. Are absolutely a key component to our success because they vouch for us. So when students are that vulnerable, they have trust issues. They've had a lot of bad experiences, like Joey was stating, in other schools, especially with social workers. So it's really valuable, those relationships that the advisors have already maintained and built. And then they can say, hey, Tabitha's great. You know, she'll really stand by you and help you through this. And then the student can feel a little at ease. So I really appreciate that High School for Recording Arts puts a lot of emphasis in our support services at the school. I've been there 19 years and I've been able to compare what other charter schools do, and the fact that we now have 2 full-time social workers and a housing advocate, and we have a therapist that we link with at Wilder. It's invaluable for the student success because we look at the whole person at our school, and obviously there's so much going on with our students in the community, but also the trauma is so deep. And so we are always going through trainings and trying to train our staff on just being very mindful. We have a lot of staff that have been in the student's shoes. And so just being very mindful not to re-traumatize students, to lift them up with a strengths-based approach. Our students are so full of light and joy when they get to shine and show us their creative force. And so I just feel very lucky to be a part of that. So when they come to me and give me their trust, it's huge. And it takes a little time with relationship building, but it's a lot of listening first, and also, you know, gently nudging and holding hands when you need to, until they can kind of go out on their own. And like Leah was saying, a lot of times we learn just as much from them. Like, our students are so resourceful. They're out there living life and finding out about resources. So we also try to empower our students with leadership opportunities. Like, if they find out about something out in the community, how can we help build that at our school, whether it be an internship program or a new shelter is opening and they're hiring high school youth that have been homeless. How can we help direct our students into these advocacy roles and social justice roles so they do feel like they're empowered and that they have some say in everything that's going on in this environment right now. So as far as how social work works at our school, I feel like it's pretty organic process, as in this online world, it's a little different. A lot of times we do the wraparound services by doing 3-way calls or Google Meets, where we can gently pass off a student to staff and work together so that they feel like, okay, now I know the person, they seem legitimate, because they're trusting us with some stories, and they have to tell us a lot in order for us to be able to serve them with the needs that they have. So building that trust and that relationship, and then navigating all the resources in the community and making sure that they're accessible, that if they need help connecting, we can. We a lot of times have outreach workers and whatnot that we work with that come to the school. So it can be like helping with hygiene supplies and just different needs that they might be embarrassed to ask that we can just have available. We also just liberally advertise, like, we're here for whatever you need. That's what we're here for. So whether it's gift cards or whatever the case may be, just to help them, you know, get that job or be able to come to school every day. We do what we can to remove those barriers.
Right, and we have, when we're in person, we have a whole swag closet with tons of those resources, clothes, everything you can think of that students help curate, and I think that really helps a lot. A lot of students take advantage of that. Tabitha, I wonder if you could speak a little bit more, you mentioned it, but with our relationship with Wilder and how important having like a therapist be directly part of our school. Can you talk about how that relationship looks and the importance it brings for our students?
Yeah, so we have had a tragedy at our school. We've had many tragedies at our school. And that's where that family aspect comes in, where students really do physically come in the building when we are physically in the building during those times, and staff leaning on each other. So we reached out to Wilder when we lost a staff member, and they came out strong and they really offered community support. And through that, we were able to forge a relationship. We are literally directly across the street from Wilder. So it was a shame that we didn't have a therapist up there. So now we have Yvette Farley. She's amazing. We've had her for a couple years, and she's able to take referrals from our social work team, see our students, and they don't need to pay anything. And our school doesn't pay anything. It's all through health insurance. So we just help them navigate that health insurance system if they don't have health insurance already, and then they're able to see a vet. We try to destigmatize, mental health, in that mental health, everyone has it. And sometimes you're going through a time and you need more support, and that's okay. So I could be regularly meeting with this student, but say, hey, I see that maybe you could even use more support on a different level with coping skills and PTSD type things. All the gamut of things our students come to us with. So if she's not the right fit, she helps them navigate that therapy world and find someone who is. And she's really, really great at meeting the students where they're at. And it's just like changed my life having a therapist to rely on, because the mental health needs are huge. And as the stressors in our environment increase, obviously that's affecting our students in real time. So.
And I think it's so important to have we have an office that a vet has in our building, so students can get therapy on site too. Just like to have those resources on site in a place that they're comfortable is really, really useful. Thank you so much for sharing that part. Because we're getting short in time, I want to shift now to have Renee, you jump in here. And I know I'm kind of paraphrasing some of your words here, but after all of these amazing wraparound services happen, these relationships are built, we're helping to restore students' trust in school, and they show up and it's something new. Now they set foot in Renee's science classroom. And what do we do differently with our pedagogy at HSRA to address those needs and that different type of student than just the traditional norm?
Yeah, and this was like a huge learning curve for me when I came in as like a new teacher. Like I said, I came straight to HSRA after my master's program, but I think the training that you get in that program is very different from what's needed in a school like ours. So basically, you can't have the student so they come in with a wall up. I mean, I think even the new students, when they're new to our school, they kind of don't believe that this is really what we're advertising it to be, basically. And so by the time they've gotten to my classroom, they've worked with Amanda, they've worked with their advisor, they've had they've worked with the social work team, and they've had all these introductions to a school that is really there for them. And then there's still that last barrier of then getting into the classroom. And if it's a classroom that looks very traditional, you can imagine with everything that the student is bringing in, it is going to turn them right back around and push them out. So I have students who maybe biology is one of the classes I teach. So maybe they already have earned a credit in biology and they only need one, or maybe biology is a new thing to them and they haven't done it yet. So if they're enrolling all year long, and let's say I see them in February, the student comes, and if it was a more traditional looking teacher-paced, teacher-centered classroom, they may walk in and one, they're not going to have any idea what's going on because they're joining us in February. Two, they may be like, I've got a credit of biology and this happens to be what I already learned. So why am I wasting my time? So it's been a full redesign of making it a very student-paced, student-centered classroom. So when the student steps into my classroom, basically everything is there. The labs are there, the handouts are there, the tutorials are there, and I'm just kind of moving around working with students one-on-one. So a brand new student would be brought to me or come into my classroom, and my first conversation with them is to find out what their experience is. Have they already earned some credits? And if they have already earned some credits in biology, well, where was that? Because I'm not going to make you sit through that again. That's a waste of your time. That's not fair to you. So students can be working on very different things within my classroom from a content perspective, but then we also focus heavily on project-based learning and competency-based learning. And so a student will, let's say, get their content if they need some content in photosynthesis, whatever it might be. But then it's really about having those one-on-one check-ins with them and starting to find where these interests are, where things are relevant to them, and then designing projects that are competency-focused. So really focusing on skill sets related to, for me, the world of science. And then we're also a hip hop school, so the arts are very, very important. So I try to encourage them to go into the studios. Like I have an environmental science class that the students have made just some amazing music. We get them into some of our art spaces to do their expression of what they're learning. So it's a very dynamic piece that is very much centered on meeting the student where they are. Because I may have a student that I see for 3 days in a row and then I don't see them for, you know, a week because they're moving or they had to work or somebody was sick and they had to care for somebody. And so you could see like how quickly that would push a student out if it was paced with me and moving when, you know, at the speed I said that they had to move. So it's really just working with the advisory team. The Care For teams that we meet with every morning are huge way to like connect with all the staff and make sure that we're understanding where our students are coming from. It kind of is, it's always a reminder, you know, of who these kids are and what they're bringing in to our classroom.
Thank you on that. And I think what you described with that,
probably it for time, yeah.
Yeah, with that arts-based programming, that is so key. And for us, we don't see what maybe some other schools might call elective, something you do after you do your science or after you do your math, then you get to have your fun class, as distinctive or as lesser elements of learning. We really try to highly integrate the arts into what we do, because like Renee said, not only is it highly engaging, like young people love to, we have a photography lab, we have a beat making studio, kids can record their music, we have visual arts. Not only is it highly engaging and young people love to express themselves in that way, but it's also enormously therapeutic. And it allows young people to show up to the table as their authentic self. It breaks down some of those barriers where I'm here doing someone else's stuff, to instead they see themselves as I'm here expressing me. And we try to channel that energy in everything we do. We tell students all the time, if you think this is BS, if you're uninterested in what we're teaching, if you're unengaged and you find this to be a waste of your time, don't do it. We use project-based learning, we innovate for students all the time, and we always take into account the ways that students learn best to tailor make something for them, because we know how important it is to catch young people. We want to help them disrupt the dropout crisis and get a diploma and start that positive path for themselves. And it's up to us to be innovative and to be flexible, not up to us to fit them into a hole that maybe that it didn't work before. You know, and I think we could go on in this realm for a very long time, and we do in some other presentations. If people are interested in our pedagogy, please reach out, because we can go much further in depth. That kind of describes it as broad strokes. I did want to give Renee you props too. You were a Teacher of the Year Minnesota finalist a couple of years back. So I wanted to throw you that accolades as well, because, and I think it's important that we state that, and what the success that you've had, Tabitha, in this realm, because what we're trying to do is change our system to meet the needs of our young people and listen to our young people to tell us what to do. We are learning from youth every day, and we are changing and being adaptive every day. Like I said at the beginning, a fundamental thing about hip hop pedagogy is to stay fresh with youth culture and to be innovative and constantly remixing and recreating what we have. So the HSRA we're telling you about in 2020 is going to look different in 2022, because we listen to the youth in front of us. And I think if anyone takes anything away from this, giving youth more power, really getting their administrative structures and your school structures to truly listen to youth advocacy and to truly inquire and create spaces to listen to young people and try to understand what they want in school and what they need so they can be successful in school. And then taking that information and co-building with young people the systems and the structures that you use, those are the ways that you can serve them best. And it's hard sometimes in schools because our structures have 10 years of history or 30 years of history. It depends on where you're at. Or there's bureaucratic enterprises that keep us from innovating some of these structures. Well, we have to have our schedule this way. We have to start at this time, whatever it is. But it's super important that as staff within our schools, we push back against that. Because if it's not serving young people, we need to change it. And so we're pretty much at the end of our time. I want to thank everybody who spoke today. You guys are unbelievable and amazing. And you could each talk probably for 5 to 7 hours or give a full seminar on what you do. So I'm also very impressed that you could have a pithy analysis and integrate your work into, you know, a 10-minute section. So very impressive to you all.
It was hard.
It is challenging, but as anyone who's listening to this can see, we'd love to share our work with you, and we're humble with it too. We'll open our books and listen to what you guys got going on too, because we don't have the answers, and we're always trying to innovate. So
Joey, can
thank
I
you so
ask?
much for your time, and applause to the panel today.
Joey, I wanted to know, I know we're at the end, but there is an important part that no one mentioned. I want to know if you can speak on it. The fact that we have students who have graduated from here come back and have been hired on. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think it speaks a lot to the program itself to have people come back. Could you talk about that for a second?
Absolutely. And I think that speaks to a broader theme too, but I'll very quickly, like, yeah, we try to intentionally hire and cultivate relationships with young people who have had success with our school. We usually ask young people before they come into work with us to have a significant experience and a couple years outside of school, so they're not with their peer group still, because we serve students all the way up to 21, but for a variety of reasons. But when they come back, it's like kind of what you were saying, I think, Leah, earlier, having people who've had a shared experience, who can relate to young people, like Tiki, you were saying, having staff that look like our students, you know, like we serve predominantly Black youth, and having, you know, in Minnesota, we see across the board, usually 4% teachers of color. That's the statistic. And at different schools, it can be a lot less. That is very challenging for a young person if you don't see anyone in your staff that you can relate to by age, by your race, by your experience. You could feel really alienated in those spaces. And so I think that's another reason we talked earlier about how we have a structure that isn't just all teachers. We have a structure that's highly integrated, everybody working together, but from people with different sets of experience, different credentials, different walks of life, different expertise. It really serves our students well. And like Tiki, you brought up, when we bring young people in, it's a great motivational factor. A young person who's 23 years old who found a way to graduate can talk to somebody very differently who's 18 and struggling than I can, you know. But as a team, me and that 23-year-old can make a major difference in connecting with a young person and in their pathway forward. So thank you for bringing that up. And I think that's really important for schools to think about. What structures do you have in place that are preventing you from hiring in a way that's more diverse, in a way that's more relevant to your student body? You know, and maybe you can tear some of those things down and remix it a little bit. So some parting thoughts for you all. Thanks everybody for tuning in with us today. And if you want to reach out to us, please see Julian, Carrie, or you can email myself, joey@hsra.org, and we'll connect with you in the interwebs. Peace all.